In this lesson, we're going to learn about variables in Python. We're also going to take a closer look at strings because knowing how to manipulate them is really important for your understanding as a Python programmer. Ultimately, I'm going to show you some basic operations in Python. Alright, so let's open up a Python interpreter shell to illustrate my rationale. So, what are variables? Simply put, in Python and in many other programming languages, variables are ways to store information. Now, what type of information? Well, previously we learned about data types in Python, integers and floats, which are actually number data types, then strings and also booleans. These being the primitive data types or the data types most often encountered. Now, variables allow us to store these data types. So in the Python interpreter here, if I type 1900, it will display the number on the screen. So this is an integer and it has not been stored anywhere. However, if I type num1 equals 1900 and then press enter, what we just did is to declare a variable and store some information in it. So in this case, our integer 1900 is stored in the variable num1. So if I type num1 and then press enter, we'll have Python tell us that num1 is 1900. I can also type print num1, which actually tells Python to print whatever is inside that variable to the screen. Now we know that 1900 is an integer. However, in this case, since it's stored in the num1 variable, num1 is going to take the data type of the information stored inside it. So if I say type num1, Python tells us that num1 is an integer. Simple, right? Okay, now in that sense we could store other types of data in variables, like for example saying name equals Python. So in this case the name is going to be a variable of type string. Now a few words about strings. We can put strings within single quotes or within double quotes. So Python in this case is going to be the same as Python. So with single and double quotes. Okay, the advantage here is that when declaring strings that contain one or more quotes inside, like for example when saying I don't like fish, if you declare it as a string and use single quotes, so let's say like fish equals I don't like fish with single quotes, you would get an error. So the advantage is that you'd be declaring it with double quotes in this case. So we can say like fish equals I don't like fish, and right now it has taken this variable. So if we say print like fish, we get I don't like fish. Okay, so there is no conflict or error in this case. Similarly, you could say cheese equals, with single quotes, can you say cheese? Okay, and if I say print cheese, it's gonna say, can you say cheese? And we can do vice versa in terms of the quotes we use. We can say cheese equals, now double quotes, can you say, and single quotes here, cheese, and we also have a question mark, of course, and if we say print cheese, we'll also have a correct statement. Now, these are just a few points I had to make on strings. Moving forward, we can also have Boolean variables, of course. So if we say minor equals false, and please notice Booleans are not declared within quotes. And as you might guess, if we say type minor, it's going to say class bool. As I said, your variables can be of any type supported by Python. However, you need to be very careful when making operations with these variables. So operations in Python. You can type simple math operations and the Python interpreter is going to act like a calculator. Let's say, for example, 9 plus 14. That's for addition. We get 23. If we say 9 minus 21, we get the result of that. So that's for subtraction. If we say 4 times 17, and notice in this case for multiplication we use the asterisk symbol, we have 68, and for division we can simply say 12 divided by 4. Alright, so these are simple arithmetic operations. Two other operations that I want to mention are the power and the modulus. So if you want to raise something to a certain power, you use double asterisk. So for example, let's say 6 asterisk asterisk 3 is 6 raised to the power of 3, which is 216. Yeah. And then we have the modulus operation, which is going to give you the remainder of dividing the left operand by the right one. So if we say 7 modulus 2, this is going to give us the remainder of this operation of dividing 7 by 2. So the remainder of dividing 7 by 2 is 1. Okay, and another one, let's say 15 modulus 6, the remainder of dividing 15 by 6 is of course 3. Okay, so you get the idea. Now these are some of the most basic arithmetic operations. There are others as well, such as comparison operations, logical, bitwise, assignment, special operations, and more. But for the sake of keeping things simple, we'll stick to the basics here. Now, you can do operations with variables as well. So if we have, let's say, for example, num1 equals 213, and then num2 equals 55, and another variable name equals Python, we can say, for example, num3 is going to be equal to num1 plus num2 times 7. Okay, and then if we say print num3, we get the result of that. So num3, or if we simply say num3 is equal to the result of this operation. Now we can do this type of operation because the variables are of the same data type. But if we say, for example, num3 equals num1 plus name, we'll get a type error. It's the same error you got for trying to subtract or divide an integer and a string. So as we can see here, unsupported operand type for plus, integer, and string. If we have num3 minus, we cannot subtract an integer and a string. We can also not divide integer and a string. However, in this case, multiplication is an exception, which is a quite logical one if you ask me. So if I type, let's say, new variable equals num2 times name, so num2 times name, what do you think is going to be the result of this? So this is going to be a string variable consisting of the word Python chained 55 times. So again, we can type new variable, and the type is going to be string, of course. And if we print the new variable, this is going to be, like I said, Python printed 55 times. We can also say new variable, and it's going to display exactly the same thing. Okay. Alright, now in the document that comes along with this video, I'm going to leave you a few resources to read further on variables and operations in Python. These are mandatory readings, and they are necessary for your successful completion of the course, so make sure to take sufficient time to read them. Okay, in the next video we're going to discuss about lists, tuples, and sets. I'll see you there.